Cliff Alexander, born November 16, 1995. How does the number 3 ranked prospect leaving high school go undrafted? Well, the answer isn't simple. Amateur hype can take you all the way to the door, but security check is where all your deficiencies can show. Unfortunately for Cliff, he had more than a few. Let's get into it. Salute to Christian Darling for the request, man. I know you've been waiting. Here you go. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Stunt number 1, late. Before Alexander was a high school prodigy, he was a West Side Chicago kid that was the definition of a late bloomer. Cliff began playing the game in the 8th grade and had a lot of catching up to do. At Curry High School, he wasn't ranked on any services and was an unknown player that moonlighted on the football field as well. This may have been a blessing in disguise because it allowed Cliff to develop his body a level above high school competition, and by his senior year, he was a force on the block. He played both ends of the floor with the same intensity and high motor. After exposure playing for a powerhouse MAC Urban Fire team on the premier grassroots circuit in the country, it helped him rise as high as number 3 in his class before his final year even began. Although he averaged just 13 points a game, he was selected as a McDonald's All-American, mainly for the 10 rebounds and 2 blocks a game. His college choices came down to Kansas and his hometown Fighting Illini. In a highly viewed decision, he broke the hearts of the Illinois fans by first selecting the school, then abruptly choosing KU as his college destination. The late bloomer was now all set in his mind. With just 5 years of organized basketball experience under his belt, he was stepping up to the challenge and being the face of a storied program. But it wouldn't turn out to be much of a story. Maybe choosing Illinois would have been a better decision in hindsight. Stunt number 2, wrong choice. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those Illinois fans are gonna love to hear these words. Cliff Alexander chose the wrong school. We see it all the time. A more realistic person guiding his career could have been more objective and noticed that Cliff just wasn't ready to play at Kansas. He was just scratching the surface of what could have been a really solid, scrappy, high motor asset, but stunted his development by going for the shinier option over what could have been a better fit. Illinois would have loved to finally have their hometown guy after losing out on almost all of them in the Bruce Weber era. I have no idea why more Chicago prospects don't choose to stay home and play there, because Illinois seems to be a great institution with a bit of story of its own. Going there would have centered all the offense and defense around him, and he could have further developed his game in a comfortable environment. Instead, he joined a stacked KU roster that included 6 total NBA players, most notably Kelly Oubre, Wayne Selden, and Frank Mason. Bill Self definitely had options, and when Alexander suffered a foot injury during preseason workouts, he was placed behind the 8 ball upon his return. Schools like Kansas are the epitome of next man up. Use us because we're definitely going to use you. Bill Self and Alexander would never get on the same page, as the coach would sparingly play the top 5 projected pick, whom he had on a very short leash. One blown defensive play and he wouldn't play for the rest of the game. For a guy still developing, this is devastating for your confidence and future. Self would even go as far to question the desire and motor of Alexander during the season, saying that Alexander needs to play with a more consistent motor. Comments like that are more than enough to send scouts running in the other direction. And in my opinion, Self was way out of line for putting his freshman in that situation, knowing how much is riding on him being good for his lone year in school. But this goes back to how important those college decisions are. Never choose name over fit, especially in today's game. Stunt number 3, obvious holes. Alexander averaged 7 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 block for the Jayhawks in 17 minutes. A huge disappointment on both he and the school's part. Mostly the program selling him a false dream, but also because Cliff just wasn't that good of a ball player up to that point. On top of that, not working hard enough to stay on the floor. Building a better relationship with the coaches can help with that. I understand, man. Being a star in high school to then sitting on the bench sometimes the entire game can be heartbreaking. It first affects you mentally, and as a 17, 18-year-old, you don't always have the maturity to deal with it correctly. But that was just one problem for Cliff. He was also slightly out of position for where the game was and also heading. At just 6'8", 6'9", as the levels go up, you're gonna see exactly what you're really made of. Cliff was also not a good shooter or stretch guy and didn't have the quick enough feet, IQ, and agility in pick and roll situations. Besides play defense and be a physical force, Cliff really wasn't helping a team in any other way. Of course, he would choose to leave the self-led tornado he was caught up in and head for the NBA after he was suspended from the team for NCAA violations, brought on by money borrowed by his family. He's quoted saying, had this not happened, he may have went back to school, but the damage was done and Alexander was out the door. Another setback would bloom in the form of injury during the NBA workout process, where he injured his knee. He was banking on showing teams he could be of value to them if in the right situation. It was a huge blow to a guy that already didn't have the tools or resume teams needed. He went undrafted, something no one saw coming as a top 3 prospect leaving high school. He now had to claw his way back, but with the game changing and him not having the skill set, resume, or clean health, he was unable to stick with the team. Being waived multiple times, G League, overseas, Cliff was done as a once prodigy. He signed to play in France in July and remains hopeful an NBA call will come. Best of luck, man. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.